with you. Okay, so Torah portion this week is Vayechi, and it deals with the final moments, if you will, of Jacob's life. So yesterday we started exploring the Torah portion, and we saw how toward the end of Jacob's life, end of Jacob's life, he calls over Joseph's son. Well, he had 12 sons, but his beloved Joseph. Also, Joseph was the one that had the power to do this. And he said, when I pass away, please make sure that I'm not buried in Mitzrayim, that I'm not buried in Egypt. When I pass away, take my remains back up to Israel, back up to the Holy Land, back up to the Promised Land and the cave of Machpelah. Joseph promises, and that's how scene 1 ends. Scene 2 begins with Joseph hearing the news that his father's health has taken a turn for the worst. So at this point, Joseph doesn't wait to be called to his father. He goes to his father with his 2 sons. And his father straightens up on the bed to the best of his ability, and he starts telling about the promise that God gave him many, many years ago, the promise of having a lot of children, the promise of inheriting the land of Israel. And Jacob says to Joseph that your 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, they are like my own. I consider them my own children, my own progeny, to the point that they will be considered tribes in their own right. And they will also inherit the land in their own right as separate tribal divisions, Manasseh and Ephraim. And then he saw Manasseh and Ephraim. Well, the Torah says that his eyes were not working so well. He couldn't see. And so he said to Joseph, who are these? Who are these children? Or who are these people with you? He says, these are the sons. He calls them over for a blessing. And he says, the Torah describes, I'm just recapping yesterday, then we're going to get into the new stuff. The Torah tells us that Joseph situated Manasseh, the firstborn, on Jacob, the father, Jacob's right side, and his younger son on Jacob's left side, so that he would put, his father would put his right hand on his grandson, on his oldest grandson, and his left hand on his younger grandson. What happens is, right before the blessing, we have the old switcheroo. We have the old crossover blessing, where he puts his right hand over the younger one and his left hand over the older one. Excellent. And that's where the scene ended yesterday. So without further ado, we're going to pick up the reading right here. I actually have the second reading pulled up, as you can see, but because I wanted to just quickly highlight the of the blessing after he crossed his hands. What did he say, or what was the transcript of the blessing? What specifically did he say? He said, it's so beautiful. God, before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, God who sustained me as long as I'm alive until this day. So may the angel who redeemed me from all harm bless the youths. Hamalach hagol osim mikara yivarech es hanaarim. And may they be called by my name in the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and may they multiply abundantly like fish in the midst of the land. So this is the blessing that he gives to the 2 sons with his arms crossed. Now we get into today's reading. Reading number 3. This is the third reading for the third day of the week for Tuesday, December 29th, 2020. Genesis chapter 48, 17. So let me just check in. I can see you guys on the side over here. Everybody with me? Yes? So far with the recap? Okay, let's jump in.
One question, please.
Sure.
Did you mention a while ago that the 2 grandsons would share a tribe in some way?
Yes. So on the one hand, they shared the tribe because they were both of the tribe of Joseph. So sometimes here's how it works. When the tribe of Levi is counted, then Joseph is counted as one, and Ephraim and Manasseh are just combined together. But when the tribe of Levi is not counted, for example, when it comes to dividing the territory, because they didn't get a territorial division, so when Levi is not counted, then you do count Manasseh and Ephraim independently. So they are kind of counted separately, and they're kind of not counted separately, depending on the context. But there's enough of a uniqueness with them that we don't find this by any of the other tribes. It's not like Reuben's kids also have their own little tribal division. No, they're all part of. It's just Reuben. But Joseph is Ephraim and Manasseh. There is this division going on. Not in a bad way, but in an independent way. Let's continue. Back into the story, chapter 48, verse 17. And Joseph saw that his father was placing his right hand on Ephraim's head. In other words, the right hand, which indicates, as you know by now, prominence and chesed, and it's the first go-to side, the right side. He's putting his right hand on the younger son Ephraim's head, and it displeased him. Now, why did it displease him? Who knows? It's the younger son. Or maybe, I remember what happened when I was favored as the younger one over the older one. Who knows the motivation here? It could be any number of these reasons, psychologically or spiritually. Either way, Joseph is not happy with his father's crossover technique. So listen to what he does. Listen to what he does. So he held up his father's hand to remove it, from Ephraim's head to place it on Menashe's head. Are you with me what the Torah is saying? He actually physically went to take his father's hand and move it to the other side. Now, he thought his father maybe couldn't see, or his father didn't know, or his father was confused. So he's trying to help his dad. And Joseph said to his father, right? As he's moving his hand, he says to his dad, "Not so, father, for this one is the firstborn. Put your right hand on his head." So he's telling him, and he's guiding his hand. He says, no, not your right hand for Ephraim. Put your right hand over this one. This one, Menashe is the firstborn. Now, let's pause the story. You think Yaakov is making a mistake? You think that Tzaddik Yaakov makes mistakes? Yeah, I don't think so either, right? He's not making a mistake. This is very intentional, as Joseph is about to be schooled about. Joseph is about to find out just how intentional this is. Back to our narrative. And by the way, hold on, before I share, I'm going to explain the Kabbalah of all of this soon. All right? We're going to get into the deeper mystical understanding of this momentarily. Uno momento. Let's continue. But his father refused. Joseph was trying to correct the situation. His father said, nope. And he said, I know, my son, I know. In other words, I know exactly what I'm doing. I know he's the older. I know he's the younger. I know. And he too, Menashe too, the older one will become a people, and he too will be great. But his younger brother will be greater than he, and his children's fame will fill the nations. Wow. Talk about a mic drop right there. Talk about a mic drop. Yeah, the older one, he's going to be amazing. He'll be awesome. But the younger one, even greater. Let's continue. We're going to circle back. We're going to circle back to this, but let's just round up the narrative. So he blessed them, the two sons, on that day, saying, with you Israel will bless. In other words, this is how the Jewish people will bless their kids for all time, saying, may God make you like Ephraim and Menashe. When we bless our sons, we actually say this text to this very day. Yesimcha lekim ke Ephraim v'che Menashe. May God make you, whoever the you, whichever speaking to, may God make you like Ephraim and like Menashe. We don't say, may God make you like Reuben and Shimon. We don't say, may God make you like Levi and Yehuda. We don't say, may God make you like Benjamin. We don't say any other tribes. We say, Hashem make you, may God make you like Ephraim and Menashe. This too requires explanation, which we'll jump into soon. And he placed Ephraim, Ephraim the younger, in that quote, in that phrase, Ephraim is placed before Menashe, once again, the younger before the elder. Let's just round it out. Two more verses, then we're going to go back. And Israel said to Joseph, father to son, behold, I am going to die, and God will be with you. Ooh, look at this promise. And he will return you to the land of your forefathers. Talk about a promise for the future that we will need as a people. As this story unfolds, we will be leaning on this promise through thick and thin, through the most difficult times of slavery. These words will echo in our ears, the words that Jacob tells Joseph and that Joseph shares with us. It's printed in Torah. God will be with you, and God will return you to the land of your forefathers. You will not die out and be snuffed out as a slave nation by the Egyptians, lost to history. You will triumphantly return to your land. This is the promise. This is the prophecy and the promise that Israel, Jacob, is telling Joseph, his son. And final verse of this reading, I've given you one portion over your brothers, which I took from the hand of the Amorite with my sword and with my bow. I got something special for you, kid. Something else that your brothers are not going to get. What does that mean? The commentators explore this. Let's jump into some Rashi. All right. So far, before we get to Rashi, makes sense, sort of, yes? The narrative? Okay. All right. Let's jump in. First Rashi. When Joseph is trying to intervene in the crossover, right? He held up his father's hand. Rashi explains he lifted it off his son's head and held it up with his own hand. Rashi's just trying to visualize the scene. Joseph is seeing this. He's displeased. He's literally lifting up his father's hand off of his younger son's head and holding it, trying to move it over. But of course, his father refuses. He says, I know that he is the firstborn, that the other guy is the firstborn. He too, let's do this, Rashi is very important. He too will become a people. Menashe, the older, will become a people. Why? What does that mean? For Gideon is destined to be descended from him. Gideon, through whom the Holy One blessed be will perform a miracle. So Gideon was somebody who came from Menashe, who was privy to a miracle. So yes, a great descendant will come from Menashe, but his younger brother will be greater than he. For Joshua is destined to be descended from him. Joshua is the one who will distribute the inheritance of the land and teach Torah to Israel. Joshua, remember, as you know, Joshua is the leader who took over for Moses. So, and led the Jewish people actually into the promised land and helped us as a people divide the land into the various portions. So Ephraim, the younger brother, Ephraim is the father, if you will, of Joshua. Joshua, not literally the father, but the great grandfather of Joshua. And his children's fame will fill the nations. What does that mean? The whole world will be filled with his fame, and his name are spread when he stops the sun in Gibeon and the moon in the valley of Ajalon or Ayalon. All right, these are various stories from the books of prophets, the book of Joshua, that talk about miracles that Joshua performed. And so Joshua not only was a great leader, but his fame will fill the nations. Everyone will hear about the miracles that Joshua did. Therefore, Ephraim is getting prominence over Menashe. Let's continue. Another Rashi. With you, Israel will bless. Whoever, listen to this, Rashi explains, whoever wishes to bless his sons will bless them with their blessing. And a man will say to his son, may God make you like Ephraim and like Menashe. And that's literally what we do till this day. When we bless our sons, we say, Yisimcha lakim Ephraim and Menashe. May God make you like Ephraim and Menashe. Girls get a different blessing, but boys get this blessing. And he placed Ephraim before Menashe in his blessing to give him precedence. Okay, fine. Let's continue. Now, toward the end of the reading, the last verse was when Jacob says to his son, Joseph, I've given you one portion over your brothers. So what does this mean? So Rashi explains, since you are taking the trouble to occupy yourself with my burial, right? Since you're the one that I've entrusted to deal with moving my remains from Egypt to Israel, I have given you, therefore, an inheritance where you will be buried. And which is this? This is Shechem. As it is said in Joseph's bones, which the children of Israel brought out from Egypt, they buried it in Shechem. So basically, he says, because you're helping me bury me after my passing, I will ensure that you have a place in Israel where you will be buried, and that is Shechem. Until this very day, Joseph's tomb is in Shechem. By the way, as I mentioned already a few times in this narrative, not today, but in previous days, Joseph, when he passed away in Egypt, was buried in Egypt. But when Exodus happened, took his bones out, and they transported it through the wanderings of the desert for 40 years. And when they ended up entering Israel, they buried him in Shechem, the same city, the same burial plot that was promised. And where does that come from? Again, the book of Joshua. Book of Joshua is that what details the initial entry into the land of Israel. Let me check in because I've done a lot of Rashis, and let me stop sharing and make sure everything is making sense. So far, so good? Yes? Okay. All right. Back inside. Yeah, what's the one portion over your brothers? It's the actual city of Shechem, which will be for you one share of your brothers. All right, he gets a bonus city. Not a bad gig. right? Joseph gets a coat. He gets a city. Unbelievable. Anyway, he's the viceroy. Okay. All right. I think we're good. Now I want to get to the Kabbalah of this story, a little bit of a mystical understanding of the story. So what we see here in this story, just to recap very briefly, on the surface is a bit of a machloket, a bit of a dispute over who should get the who should get the right-handed blessing and who should get the left-handed blessing, right? Joseph's opinion is that his older son should get the right hand and his younger son should get the left hand. Jacob, the grandfather, says, no. I'm going to do it my way. My right hand is going over the younger son, and my left hand is the older son. Crossover. Yes, the older one will be great, but the younger one will be even greater. And Rashi explains because of the descendants. Gibeon versus Joshua. Okay. But what does it mean on a deeper level? And what lesson can you and I take from this? Are we just airing out an interesting family story? Is that we're just like going behind the curtains, behind the scenes, into that room to see what happened? Like what's the eternal message for us in our life? Is it just historically to understand, the blessings? And there's got to be something more. So here is the way Kabbalah and Chabad Hasidic philosophy explains the story. And the story goes, the youngest rule. Yes, the youngest always rule. That's for sure. That is for sure. It goes without saying. On a deeper level, well, maybe that is the deepest level. On another level, we can say the following. And it goes back to their names, the names of the two that we're talking about, and their energies, because their energy is captured by their name, Menashe and Ephraim. And the good news is, I've already told you this in a prior portion, I made sure to tell you about the deeper meaning of Menashe and Ephraim then, so that we would be better primed to understand the story of the crossing of the hands right here. To recap, Menashe means that I've worked past my trauma. If you recall, Joseph names his first son Menashe, which means I've now forgotten all of the trials and travails of my youth and my father's household. In other words, I'm in a healthy place. I'm okay. The challenge is I've been able to keep them at bay. But Ephraim, the second son, Ephraim means Hifrani. Not only have I survived and made it through the other side okay, I have thrived. I've been fruitful and I've multiplied in the land, in this foreign land, or the land of my affliction. Not I survived and I'm okay, but it's propelled me to an even greater growth. So I'm going to use an example. I think I did this last time, like last week or 2 weeks ago. I'm going to use kind of like a baseline. So, right. So this is where he's starting off. He dips down with all of his sorrows, with all of his problems. Then he's able to get back up to where he was. Menashe. Ephraim is going even higher. You with me? Okay. So I want to ask you a question. Before I answer the question, this is a truth in all of our lives, right? There's darkness, there's challenge, and I am not going to define it for you or for me right now. I'm going to let you define it for you. Whatever you consider in your own life, whether it's right now or in your life up until now, think of a moment, think of a challenge, think of a moment of darkness. Whether it was an internal challenge, an external challenge, it doesn't make a difference. A moment of challenge, but real challenge in your life. And then think about what it means to have a Menashe and what it means to have an Ephraim. To have a Menashe means that you're able to push back the challenge or paddle through, use any sort of like cliche or not cliche, but, phraseology. Paddle through the challenge, break through the challenge, get to the other side. That's Menashe. Menashe is I was able to overcome the challenge and get to the other side safely. That's Menashe. And what's Ephraim? Ephraim is, I'm only here today because of the challenge, or the gifts that I got in the process of that challenge, I wouldn't trade it for the world. That's a different experience. Are you with me on the two different experiences? One is I was able to survive the challenge. Baruch Hashem, thank God. The other one is the challenge gave me insight, wisdom, strength, gifts, courage, whatever. I don't want to make it I don't want to define it for you. But the challenge gave me something that I would not have received or achieved otherwise. And looking back, I would not have changed it for the world. I didn't ask for it. But now that I've overcome it and gained from it, I wouldn't trade experience for the world. These are the two experiences of Menashe and Ephraim. So I'm going to ask you a question. And this is explained in Kabbalah and Chabad Hasidic philosophy. This is the way we understand the energy, the name and the energies of Menashe and Ephraim. So I'll ask you a question. Which step comes first? Which step comes first? Remember, Menashe means I survived. I was able to overcome the challenge. Ephraim means not only did I survive and overcome, but I gained from the challenge. Which, in our process of dealing with challenge, which comes first? Menashe. That's right. First, we have to survive, and we can tap into the energy in the darkness itself. That's why in the birth order, right, in the natural chronological order of birth, which comes first? Sorry, which son comes first? Who comes first? Menashe, and then Ephraim. But when you think about it from a different perspective, from a divine perspective, and we believe that God's in control, why did God give us the challenge? Just to get back to where we started? No. God is not trying to just, push us down so that we get back up. No, it's like, imagine you're running in the Olympics on a track, or you're running on a track, and suddenly you see there's a thing in front of you blocking your way. It's like, how am I supposed to run if this is in the way? Until your coach says, buddy, you're supposed to run, you're supposed to jump over it. It's called a hurdle. In other words, right, it's not meant to stop you. It's not even meant for you to blast through it. It's meant for you to elevate higher than you were before. If you think about it from a larger divine perspective, why is it that we have the challenge in the first place? Is it just to survive, or Menashe, to overcome it, or is it to gain something from it that we could not have gained otherwise? Menashe or Ephraim? What's the tachlis? What's the purpose of it? Ephraim. This is the dispute between Joseph and Yaakov and Jacob, between father and son and father. The son, Joseph, says he's looking at it from his perspective, having gone through the trauma in his own life, gone through it in a chronological way. From his vantage point, he names his first son Menashe, his second son Ephraim. He's looking at it from that locked-in perspective. First, you need to survive and overcome, and then you can start learning the lessons from it. First things first. And Yaakov, his father, who's been through more challenge in his life, and he's at the end of his life now. And now he's looking at it from a little bit of a bird's eye perspective. He says, the whole point is Ephraim. Yes, you need to go first through Menashe until you get to Ephraim, but the whole point is Ephraim. The whole point is to not just survive and not just overcome, but to gain the gifts you could not have received otherwise. Otherwise, it's not justified. Otherwise, the challenge is immoral. The challenge is wrong. If it's just about getting to where I was before, so why did I have to go through that? The only justification from a divine perspective for challenge is if we come out the other side with something that we didn't have before, that we couldn't have had before had we not gone through it. That's the only moral and ethical, spiritual, religious, Jewish, divine justification for challenge. The truth is that's in our hands. It's our choice. Jacob says, as a lesson for us for all time, we have to keep our eye on the prize, to keep our eye on the goal. Yes, we're first going to have to go through the process of Menashe until we reach Ephraim. But that's the goal. And that's the only justification for the challenge in the first place. And Jacob is telling us, if exile on a let's say on a, forget a personal level, now on a larger level, if the Jewish exile, if this experience going down to Egypt is just about surviving Egypt and going back to Israel, then there was no point, because we were in Israel before. So we had to go down to Egypt just to get back and to have hundreds of years of slavery and harsh servitude and beatings and murders just to get back to where we started? No. It's not about Menashe. It's not about Menashe. It's not about survival. Sorry, with all due respect, it's not about survival. People speak about the greatest miracle of the Jewish people is that we've survived. It's a Menashe mentality. It's a Menashe mentality. Step one, but it's a Menashe mentality. The purpose of exile, the purpose of Egypt, the purpose of pain and suffering and challenge, I can't say the purpose of the exile we find ourselves in now is to somehow lead us and bring us and allow us to realize something so much greater than we could have ever achieved without going through the challenge. That's the only moral justification, and it's the choice is ours whether we will realize that. That's why Ephraim, in Jacob's worldview, Jacob, the wizened father, the last few moments or last days, whatever, of his life, he crosses the arms, crosses his hands. All right, I can stop sharing. I probably could have stopped sharing a while ago, my screen. Questions, comments? Yeah, Ray.
Okay, now I'm totally confused. Where did he end? He put his, which hand went where?
His right hand went on the younger son, Ephraim, and his left hand went on the older son, Menashe, which indicates that of the two, the younger son was more prominent, would have prominence. That would be the right hand, the greater energy, or the right is always associated with the first. So he's putting the second first. And from a technical level, Rashi explains, because of the future progeny, the younger one's son or descendant, Joshua, would be greater than the other one's descendant, Gideon. All right, I hear that. I guess we're ranking people. But on a deeper level, on a mystical level, according to Kabbalah and Hasidus, means something completely different. The message is that in life, we go through challenge, and there's hopefully two positive steps. One, we survive and overcome, and two, we learn something, we gain something, we achieved something in the process. And what Joseph was saying is he's following the order of the process, 1 and 2. And what Jacob is saying, what's the purpose of it? 2, then 1. So yeah, you can't get to 2 without 1. You can't learn without surviving, obviously, right? You can't gain if you're still in the darkness. But the purpose is not just survival. The purpose is to thrive. The purpose is to gain something from the process. Otherwise, it's just not moral. It's not justified. We can look at God and say, God, not cool. Not cool. But God tells us, not cool. There is a reason. Or there is something to be gained from this. And yes, we could always ask, why couldn't we have gained this without that? It's a valid question. We'll never know the answer to that. But if we find ourselves in a situation, it behooves us to not just look to survive, but look to learn something, gain something from this, something that we could not have gained or learned otherwise. By the way, I have to be very careful to point out, this is never meant to be applied to someone else. This is my lesson, and it's your lesson to apply to yourself. We should never tell someone else, you know why you're going through this, because X, Y, and Z. Or you know why that hardship happened to those people? Because something good. This is never about playing God. This is not you and I playing God for other people. This is you and I responding to our own challenges and working through it and knowing for ourselves that just surviving is not enough. So I am not just going to survive. I'm just going to overcome this. I'm going to grow in the process. It's a lesson for me and for every one of us to say a lesson for me, not me, you're me. If that makes sense. All right. Well, just to be very careful, and it's important because people will always revert to the Holocaust and say, so does that mean X, Y, and Z? And the answer is no, it doesn't, because then we're playing God and we're not playing God. It's about us, my own challenge and my own stuff, my own darkness, my own challenge at this moment, right? How do I perceive it? Is it just about survival, or is it also about something that Joseph, at the end of the day, Joseph and Jacob, they weren't really arguing, or they both agreed that both are necessary. The question is, though, is Ephraim, which is the prophet from the darkness, the gain, is that icing on the cake, or is it the whole reason for it? That's a little bit where the distinction comes in.
Wasn't it
Yeah, Donna.
Jacob's faith that led him through the slavery, through his imprisonment and things? So innately, I suppose that's what his feeling was, that there was light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, for sure. You're saying Joseph, you mean even the son knew that. Yeah. Joseph knew that. But the way he was perceiving it is, look, this is how things go, and this is the order, and this is step one and step two. And even if you survive, it's that dayenu. And if more, icing on the cake. And Jacob was saying, it's not just survival. God doesn't give us this just to get back to where we started from. That's very cruel. It's very cruel. Pushes us underwater to pick our heads, so we should struggle to pick our heads back up. Come on. That's not what God's doing. It's about a challenge that leads to something much greater than whatever we could have achieved otherwise. But yes, you're right. Joseph certainly had these meditations in mind. But again, it's a little bit of a difference in emphasis, right? Which syllable are you emphasizing?
Well, Joseph didn't know.
Sure.
He was just putting his faith in God, right, in the 22 years.
Yeah, he was going with the flow. But Jacob gives us the perspective, which is so beautiful, which is, I know, again, if something is happening with me, I know that this is a gift. It's a gift. And you're saying, well, didn't Joseph have that also? Yeah. But maybe it was this plus a gift, whereas Jacob is saying, got to look at it from the beginning. Anyway, this is the way it's explained. How we go back into the Joseph story, and it seems like he did have the higher perspective. No, listen, but it's definitely two ways of looking at it, and even in our own lives, we can catch ourselves. Look, there's three ways to look at it. Let's not forget the first way. The first way is, I'm done. I'm doomed. God forbid, right? This is I'm out. That's a possible perspective. Perspective number two is, I can survive. Number three is, this is for my greater good. Listen, it's not about telling anyone else how to think, as I said before, but it's important always to keep on mentioning this disclaimer. This is about me. So I think everybody would agree, for ourselves, not for anybody else, for ourselves, what's a healthier approach, right? I'm doomed, I can survive, or what can I learn from this? Who's going to say that I'm doomed is a healthier approach for themselves? Who's going to say that? Not saying who doesn't fall into that and get stuck in that sometimes. Yes, because we're human. But that's why we have Torah. If it's easy, we wouldn't need to be this. If this was intuitive, we wouldn't need Torah. We wouldn't need Joseph. We wouldn't need Jacob. The whole reason why we have it is to open up our eyes and to remind ourselves of healthy approaches to life. Anyway, I hope this makes sense. Make sense? Yes? Yes, Ish?
Yeah.
All right, awesome.
Yes.
Awesome sauce. Okay, so note, I want to wish all of you a very happy and healthy end of 2020. That sounds ominous. End of 2020, no, but last few days of the year of 2020. And we should all stay positive and hopeful that if we are going through a challenge, that not only should we survive, but that we should realize the gift that is embedded in that darkness, the silver lining, or beyond the silver lining. At the end of the storm, you have the rainbow. And at the end of the rainbow, you have the pot of gold. Is that what it is?
Yes.
I have to remember my Lucky Charms cereal. Okay. And if you recall, there was a discussion that we had a little while ago about when the Jewish people were to go into Canaan, and they were to get Sarat, the affliction for gossiping, and it would either afflict their skin or their clothing or their homes, and they would break down the walls of their homes if their homes got hit, and they would find their treasures in the walls. You remember we spoke about this, and we said, talk about a silver lining, or talk about the gift in the difficulty, the gift in midst of the pain. So please God, and the more we believe in it, the more we know it to be true, the more likely we are to achieve it. So may we, first of all, we should not have challenges. But if we do, God forbid, we should find a treasure. So find the treasure. That's my charge, right? Not like swipe the card charge. That's my action. Find the treasure. And then when you find the treasure, you definitely can charge, because you got the treasure. All right, that's it for today. December 29th in the books. We have the 30th and the 31st. It's Wednesday and Thursday, and Friday is New Year's. Is that true? Is that correct? Friday is New Year's? Okay, let me check in with you guys. Are we good the next few days? 12 o'clock? Yes.
Yes.
Are we good Friday?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes? All right. We'll see if we're hungover. I'm kidding. Why would it be hungover? Seriously. It's like, who did I hear saying this recently? Somebody said this recently. I was watching something or listening to someone, either here or somewhere else, say different Rosh Hashanah is than January 1st. When was the last time you heard somebody the day after Rosh Hashanah saying, so are you still hungover? Why would Rosh Hashanah? I don't know. Maybe I just had too much tzimis or too much tashlich action feeding the fish. But why would I be hungover? It's a different, listen, it is what it is, and it's a different experience. But hopefully by noon on Friday, we'll all be ready to roll. All right.
In person tomorrow?
Oh, in person tomorrow. That's a good question. No, I don't think I'll be able to do it in person. Oh, hey, look who's here. The Frisco Yid. Hey, Mendy, say hi.
How are you guys?
This is my brother-in-law, Rabbi Mendy Kesselman from Frisco, Texas.
I just came to let you know how lucky you are.
Oh, stop. But go on.
We went to visit you not long ago. We were in the car driving to visit you in Texas.
Yes, they were with me driving in the car. That's fine.
Oh, I see.
But I broadcast also from his house.
1 second. I'm busy telling you how lucky you guys are.
Sorry. Go.
You're the best teacher,
We know.
the best rabbi.
No, we know.
All
That's
right,
for
make sure to
sure.
take care.
Very true.
The secret is that even all the other rabbis listen to him and watch him so we can train.
I'm sure.
Don't give away the secrets. Thank you. Thank you for
Nice to
saying that.
meet you.
Checks in the mail. All right. Good. Great to see you guys. Have a great day. Those
Thank
that are
you.
taking the Talmud course, we're on winter break. Rabbi Jacobson is not teaching tonight. We'll be back next Tuesday night, January 4th, 5th, whatever it is, for Talmud. All right. Have a wonderful day. Yom Tov. Stay healthy. Stay well. Bye, Donna. Bye, Ray. Bye, Mark. Bye,
Thank you.
Sandrine. Bye, Matt. Bye,
Thank you,
Stephanie.
Rabbi.
And Ray,
Bye.
Mazel Tov. Mazel Tov on
Happy New Year, everyone.
Barry's anniversary. Bye. We'll see you all. Take
Bye.
care. Sei gesund.